our topic today is fairly straightforward. We just want to add integers. And this is a topic that I know with our group that we've already had some previous exposure to it. So the goal is not to go through it supremely slowly and go through the full explanation. Because we have some familiarity already, we'll go through it a little bit more quickly, just kind of a refresher instead of a completely new lesson. And so we're starting off. Additive inverse is basically another name for an opposite. For example, positive 5 and negative 5, those are additive inverses. The additive inverse property says adding opposites, that is, if you add together additive inverses, if you add together opposites, you will always get the same thing. What do you get if you add them together? Positive 5 and negative 5 add up to what? 0. They wipe each other out. Now, because of your previous familiarity, I'm betting that you can already look at pieces like, what's 7 plus negative 10? Added together, those are going to wind up being negative 3. Well, being able to get that answer is, of course, included in the standards, but within our standards, there's also a component that says you should be able to visually represent what's going on. It's not just about getting the answer. There's also a component about understanding where the answer comes from. And so we're going to do a couple of examples with number lines, focusing on the why this answer works. And then we'll review the rule and do a couple quick examples of just using it. So starting off with this question number A, or question letter A. The first number is where you start on the number line. So we will start at 7. And we'll notice right over here where that line is, that's the beginning point. The second number tells us how many units to move. We'll move 10 units. We just have to then figure out left or right. Because it's a negative, we will go left. That's the rule for visually representing. The first number is the beginning location. Positive and negative tells you the direction to go. And then the second number is how far to go in that direction. Counting it out, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Where did we stop? Right there at negative 3. Our final position was negative 3, demonstrating visually that the sum, 7 plus negative 10, equals what we already knew, negative 3.
That's smart.
Once again, this is addressing a standard of visually representing it. Not just getting the answer quickly, but trying to understand where the answer comes from. So second one, where would we start? Start at negative 6, because that's the first number. Then we have to move 5 units, because it's the second number, to the right, because it's positive. So we're at negative 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We finish there. And so we've got our answer. All right, so we're only going to do one of these on the board here. So which one do we want to do together?
Plus
Number 1 or
one.
number 2?
The 1.
Right, so we're doing this one on the board. Where is our starting location?
9. So you need...
And then, because it's a negative for the second, we'll go to the left. And just counting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We finished at 3. We're done.
Dang. You're smart.
For those people watching at home, you can pause the video and work on the second one. All right, so developing this rule, or perhaps checking your memory based on them. When do we have the same sign, such as positive 8 plus positive 12. What are we supposed to do with the numbers? We've got to add.
Wait, what did you say?
When the signs are the same, like 8 and 12, we add them to get 20. Same thing, negative 6 plus negative 4. The signs are both negative, so we have to add. 6 plus 4 gives us 10. The second part is to figure out what is the sign supposed to be. Is that supposed to be a positive or a negative?
Negative.
For the first one, positive 8 plus positive 12. Should that be positive or negative 20?
Positive.
Positive 20, yes. For the second one, negative 6 plus negative 4.
Positive.
Why should it be positive?
Because 2 negatives equal positive.
All right, the statement is made 2 negatives equal to positive. You've got to be careful because that's the rule for multiplication.
Oh, yeah, true.
And of course, we're not multiplying here. It's pretty common for students to make that particular error. As
So it'll
weird
be
as
a
this
negative.
seems, as weird as it seems, I've got this kind of funky way of remembering this rule. And ultimately, I'm not saying like you have to think the way that I think, but when I'm adding integers, I've got big fat sumo wrestlers going through my brain. And what I'm thinking, when I look at the numbers, I think of big fat sumo wrestler 8, big fat sumo wrestler 12. Which one's bigger?
12. 8.
12 is bigger than 8. So in my mind, the bigger, fatter sumo wrestler is going to win.
True.
And so, since 12 wins my sumo match, is 12 positive or negative?
Positive.
Since it was positive, it's going to win, and my answer will be positive. And I can continue that rule for any one of them. Negative 6
So
plus
it's
negative 4. For negative 6 plus negative 4, which one of them is the bigger number, 6 or 4?
I mean, yeah, no.
6 is bigger. And since 6 was negative, it tells me my answer will be negative.
Yeah.
Continuing the same piece, going down to the next one, positive 5 plus negative 8. Which number is bigger, 5 or 8?
5.
8 is bigger than 5. And because 8 is bigger than 5, and I'm not thinking of the negatives at all. I'm just completely ignoring the negatives. I'm thinking of just the positives.
So it is negative.
Positive 5 plus negative 8. Since 8 is bigger than 5, 8's my bigger, fatter sumo wrestler. It's going to win, and so I'm going to keep the sign. Since 8 was negative, I've got a negative answer, whatever the number is. Negative 11 plus 13.
Yeah, I see that.
13 was bigger,
Oh,
and 13 was positive, so my answer will be positive.
it was.
Oh, like,
I know it's kind of a weird and funky way to think about them. You know, big fat sumo wrestlers slacking, you know, like rah, going all over the place. But that's, I don't know why, but that mental image is what clicks for my brain. No, it's such a funky thing to think about that I don't ever forget it.
Wait.
All right, and we still need to develop a rule then, because we know with this 5 plus negative 8, we have the sign on it, but we still don't have the number component. What do you do when the signs don't match? That is when they're different. Well, when you have different signs, you're going to subtract the small number away from the larger number. And again, we're ignoring the positive and negatives completely because we're working with absolute value. In this instance, since 5 is smaller than 8, we have to take 8, subtract 5. That's just 3. Combined with the sumo wrestler to give us a negative, we know that the answer is negative 3. Negative 11 plus 13. Since one of them is negative and one of them is positive, the signs are different, so we have to subtract. 13 subtract 11 is 2. And thus we wind up with our answer, positive 2.
They lied. I said that one, they lied to me.
Oh.
We're noting then that when the signs are different, we'll always subtract the small number off the larger and keep the sign of the larger one. Lastly, this is getting back to our opposites. If you add up a number and it's opposite, what are the opposites always equal? Opposites always add up to 0. And so we're done. All right, now let's consider this example A. Negative 35 plus negative 18. First of all, notice that we've got negative and negative. So the signs are the same. What does that tell us to do?
Make them up.
Does it tell us to add or subtract?
Add.
We've got to add them. So we'll add 35 and 18. 35 plus 18 equals 53. Now, because both of them were negative, we know that the bigger number will be negative. So our answer has to be overall negative. It will be a negative 53. For the second question, positive 27 plus negative 13.
It's gonna be positive.
One is positive, one is negative. The signs are different. That tells us to subtract.
Subtract.
We'll subtract the 13 off from 27. 27 minus 13 gives us 14. And because 27 is bigger than 13, we'll keep the sign of the bigger number. It's going to have the same sign as 27. Because it was positive, so is our answer. All right, now let's consider, what do you do if you have 3 numbers to add together?
You still look for the bigger number.
With 3 numbers, you have to do it in stages, doing 2 numbers at a time. We are going to start by adding together negative 7 and negative 41. Noting that they're both negatives, the signs are the same. That tells us to add. 7 plus 41 equals 48. Because 41 was the bigger number, and 41 was negative, it makes our answer negative. That then sets us up to do another piece of addition. We can add the negative 48 and 32 together.
You subtract that?
Yes, we will have to subtract because we have a negative paired with a positive. The signs are different. That tells us subtraction. 48 subtract 32 equals 16. And should that be positive or negative 16?
Negative.
Because the bigger number 48 was negative, our answer is negative. And we're done. Let's do our last 2 examples here with number 3 and number 4. Negative 19 plus 36. What do we have to do? Add or subtract? Because the signs are different, negative and positive, that's a subtraction. What is 36 subtract 19?
41.
After we borrow, we get 17. Should that be positive 17 or negative 17?
Positive.
Positive because the bigger number of 36 was positive. Now we'll do question number 4. With 3 numbers, it needs to be done in stages. Negative 29 plus negative 31.
Will that be 50?
Because they're negatives, both of them, we add the numbers together. That will equal negative 60. 29 plus 31 is 60. 31 was bigger, and that was negative. So our answer is negative. Next, we have to do negative 60 plus 47. Is this adding or subtracting now? subtracting because they're different. One is negative, one is positive. And so we'll take 60 minus 47. That does give us 13. And so is this a positive 13 or a negative 13?
Negative.
Because negative 60 was the bigger number, we got negative 13. And we're done.
1.6 now.